What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Radulescu, Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, bring you incredible guests from all over the world, so sit back, relax, and tune in. My next guest is a sober coach. She is also a podcast host, author, the founder of Sober Vibes and National Sober Day. Please welcome Courtney Andersen. Courtney, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much to have me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Me too. I love having fellow hosts on the show because it's always fun to connect with each other because we're both in this space. So that's always fun. I've never had a sober coach on the show before. And so I kind of want to hear your journey of becoming a sober coach because there's got to be a story behind that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So how I became a sober coach was because I actually got sober myself August 18th of 2012. I spent 10 years in a active addiction with alcohol. I also explain it as a toxic love affair that I had with this substance. So when I got sober, I did the 12 steps in the beginning. It was too much for me at the time. And then a couple of years later, I went back and participated in the 12 steps. And I was sitting there listening in a meeting. And I was sitting at a woman's table because that's where I felt safe.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's got to be something more.
Yeah.
So that was about 3-4 years in. And at that time, I was actually a health and fitness coach through a MLM. And I loved coaching. And at that meeting, that's when Sober Vibes was created because I wanted to make it more of an empowerment and really meeting people with where they were at, whether they were sober curious or sober, or struggling in an active addiction. Everybody's story and journey is different.
Sure.
So from there, I waited until I started the coaching. And Sober Vibes is an online community. And so, but I waited to start coaching in sobriety when I was 6 years, because it was very important for me to, do my road of recovery.
Sure.
Get healthy myself, not, start dabbling into others. Right. So, so that's how sober coaching really got started. But it's been, Sober Vibes was created and then growing the online community. It's been baby steps. I like baby step things. So that is how I got into sober coaching.
So behind getting sober and having that toxic relationship, I love that, by the way, using that term. That's a great way to say it. Were you self-medicating? Was there something that happened to you that you were turning to alcohol?
I think what really started was I really started to drink at 19. Living in the suburbs of Detroit, you can go over to Windsor. It's like a 20-minute drive. You can go across the border in Canada, and their drinking age is 19.
Yeah.
So I absolutely fell in love with the bar scene nightlife. And what started off super innocent became something darker and darker and darker as the years went on. So to answer your question, yes. What I was medicating was my own personal, trauma that I experienced growing up and continued to experience trauma throughout my active addiction.
Sure.
So, and it was something that I just got stuck in. And you get stuck, you don't know how to get out, you try to justify everything, you try to bargain with yourself, you try to fit okay, I'm not going to have any tequila tonight because tequila really does it to me. I'm not going to drink any more wine because wine makes me loopy, make sure I got to eat. So at 25, I knew in my soul that I was going to have to get sober one day, but from 25 to 29, I tried to moderate it and I tried to fit alcohol into my life, which it no longer fit. It was past the point of no return.
So in becoming a sober coach, you've had the experience and you can relate to your clients that they're going down that path. I mean, isn't it a pretty common thing, though, that people that are maybe addicted or relying on a substance are self-medicating?
Well, 100%.
Yep.
Or it eventually becomes that, right?
Sure.
Doesn't, because and nobody's relationship really with alcohol starts off of oh man, I'm going to have a problem.
Sure.
At different periods of your life, because I have seen it where it starts off for me, 19. A lot of young people, it's this is what we do in college. But now I've seen it too, where it's like, okay, moms who are having kids and staying home with their babies, then their drinking starts. Or women whose children have left the house and getting divorced when they're older, then the drinking starts. So it really does. It's not, it's different for everybody. But yes, eventually I think it becomes something more of wanting to numb out and not feel.
Yeah. No, I think that's a common theme. And being a sober coach and helping them walk through getting to their sobriety, like how many, I mean, and aside from the usual 12-step program that everybody knows about,
Mhm.
what kind of program do you take them through that you've created for your clients?
My program is a lot of accountability and support and giving them holistic tools to be able to sit with themselves. I am by no means, I am not a doctor or anything of that. And you have to look at it too. It's like for such a long time, a lot of people were only given 12 steps in rehab. And not a lot of people can afford rehab, and not a lot of people vibed with 12-step programs. There's nothing wrong with either one of them, but it is for me to coach somebody through. It is really about being able to sit with yourself and go through that uncomfortable moments, or having somebody to be accountable with to check in, because a lot of people now are surrounding themselves or have been surrounding themselves by people who have enabled them.
Yeah.
And it's okay with the enablers because people just don't know what else to do. So a lot of women I end up working with have done it all,
Yeah.
and then eventually come to me and we work on it together. Majority, I have a program, it's an 8-week program, where it's like you got to get a solid 2 months underneath your belt to start forming that foundation, if not longer, because everybody's different. So I meet the person with where they're at. I don't have this like, okay, week 1, we're going to do this. Week
Right.
2, we're going to do it. It's tailored to the person.
Yeah. No, I love that. And at what point does someone come to you and say, "Hey, I really just feel like I need to get sober"?
When they're good and tired.
Getting tired.
When they're good and tired. I mean, honestly, there was a male I worked with actually last summer where he was in his early 50s, and he wanted me to help him stay sober through vacations, because he was like, I've been trying to do this and then I go on vacation and I relapse. And
Oh, wow.
I just talked to him about a month ago, and he's a year sober. So we like push through it, but that's the thing. It's like, and two, as we get older, those day ones are harder and harder to go back to and go through. So yeah, definitely when somebody's good and tired.
Yeah, that's amazing. So so you work with men and women, and you say you help high achieving women quit drinking alcohol and thrive in sobriety. So is it only alcohol, or do you help them get sober from other things as well?
It's mainly alcohol. I mean, I have worked with a couple people who've had issues with drugs, and which I have no problem. The verbiage, they just kind of switch it. It's somebody who can get that. Not everybody can. So, but yes, it's mainly alcohol.
Why should someone consider becoming sober?
They should consider it this is who I speak to, if it's a problem to you. I'm not saying anybody, because there are people who can drink and not have a problem, right?
Sure.
But if it's no longer serving you, and you could have an extreme rock bottom, or your extreme rock bottom can just be simply you're now waking up with anxiety each morning. You're starting to brown out a little bit more and more. You're not remembering what you're saying to your children the night before. It's like, where does alcohol fit into your life, right? And if it's this thing where you're discovering like, I can't no longer control this, because alcohol does take over.
Yeah.
It does take over, and there is, as I said earlier today in this episode, there's a point of no return. Even if you try moderating it, a lot of people who try to moderate end up be like, okay, cool. I went 6 months. I don't have a problem. And then they go back to where they started.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So yeah. So the person just has to ask themselves, is this something that continuously harms me?
Right.
And is doing more good or more harm than good?
What if they're in denial?
Oh, well, they have to, yeah, the denial one's hard because a lot of people are in denial about that. That's how with addiction, where it takes you and where you're not seeing the bigger picture. But that is just something that you have to continue to push through and get over. You have to, I don't want to say get over yourself, but you really do have to work through that. It's an ego thing too,
Oh,
working
yeah,
through it, So.
for sure. So what if somebody's listening to this and has a family member that might be struggling with sobriety, which, alcohol specifically, and that person is in their family members in denial? What kind of advice would you give to them to help them with their family member?
I would say to stop innately, right? Like that family member, at some point, you have to look to be like, what role am I playing in this?
Sure.
Right? Like, am I making this better for them or if I'm making it worse? And I will tell you, if you think that the person drinking around you is a safe space for them, it is not, because all you're showing that person is that they can drink alcohol in front of you and you do not care.
Right.
So it's one of those things you have to look at your own action and understand that you can't continue to help somebody that doesn't want to help themselves, because there are some people who just will keep going, and take. And some people don't want to get sober who have problems with alcohol. And at that point, it's almost like you have to start grieving them. I know that sounds very hard, but I've had to do it too with family members where it's like, you can't participate in that anymore because then what it's doing to you,
Yes,
you know?
for sure. No, I totally agree. I just like to ask the questions, in case someone is listening and says, hey, I know someone in my life that could use this, but they're in denial. So that's some good advice for them to just kind of consider when they listen to this. So I want to hear about National Sober Day.
Yes.
How did you
So,
start that? And
so
how did
National
that happen?
Okay, so National Sober Day, I started in 2019. I was actually watching a reality show, and this girl started a national holiday, and I was like, oh my God. And she went through the process. She was like,
Yeah.
then I went to the website, I did all of this, and I was thinking, I was laying there, and I was like, oh my God, I don't think that there's a National Sober Day. I know that there's National Recovery Month, which is in September.
Right.
It's like, but there's not a day. Like, you have days of National Vodka Day, Margarita Day, wine
Donut day.
Yes, donut day. Like, so the next day I got up and I went to the website. I submitted my information. The woman emailed me back within a day or two, and she was like, yeah, you can have this holiday. I did it for September 14th because I wanted to do it in National Recovery Month, but also too, both my grandmothers passed away on September 14th of different years. So I wanted to honor them because I loved both of those women dearly. And then it's more paperwork paid, and there we go. So National Sober Day really is to bring more awareness to not only sobriety, but addiction. And when you're in the space, you have to understand that you got to talk about addiction and you got to talk about sobriety and recovery. They go hand in hand.
Oh, for sure. How cool is that, though? So it was a fairly easy process then to create your own national holiday.
Oh my God, yes. You can go to, is it like National Calendar Day? And you could go and see if there's a national holiday you want to create, go and create it.
That's
Then
pretty
you get,
cool.
yeah,
Anybody listening, if you want to create a national holiday, now you know what to do.
right,
Uh,
exactly.
So what is the process like when somebody's interested in saying, I heard Courtney on the Label Free podcast. I think I want to become sober. When they reach out to you, what does that look like for them?
Well, that, if they're interested in working with me on one-on-one coaching, they fill out an application, and then we get on a Zoom and we have about a 30-minute consult, and then see to if that is something that we are both interested in working together.
Okay.
Some people you just don't vibe with, and
Right.
that is okay.
Yeah.
So we go through that process. I also have a community called The Fix that anybody can join in that. It's actually only women. And then I have all of my free resources of, my Instagram, my own podcast, all of that. So there's just different levels of help.
Sure.
Mhm.
Very cool. And where can people find you, connect with you, and learn more if they want to work with you?
Yeah. I hang out most on Instagram at Sober Vibes. I have my Sober Vibes podcast, And you can visit my my website, CourtneyRecovered.com, and then also to my book, Sober Vibes, A Guide to Thriving the First 3 Months Without Alcohol, is coming out August 15th. So you can pre-order that today. And that is me as your coach walking you through that process. I share a little bit about my story in there, but it's really having you build a solid foundation and what to expect those first 3 months, because those by far are the hardest, those first 90 days.
You guys, I'm going to put those links in the show notes. So if you connect with Courtney, or you know somebody that might need Courtney's help, or are interested in listening to her podcast, go click the links, go check her out, go support her on social media, follow her there. That's the best thing you can do for us to learn more about what we offer. So yeah, I'll put those links in the show notes. So take advantage of that. Courtney, tell us a little bit about your podcast and what people can expect if they are going to tune into your show.
Yeah, so the Sober Vibes podcast, I do one solo episode, one guest episode, and then my sister and I have a show within a show called Living on the Edge. And my sister and I talk, there's a lot of humor in that one. Well, we talk about family addiction, and we talk about our relationship, and, because my sister is also a recovering alcoholic and crack addict. So my sister has her own story too. But also in the space, it's more about the family dynamic. And that is not talked about enough, right? And so my sister and I are very open with that. So lots of inspiring stories. My solo episodes are more of a coaching episode. And like I said, with my sister and I, there's tears and there's laughs.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got sisters, so I know how it goes. Those conversations can be fun, and then they can be real intense. So that's awesome. You guys go check out your favorite podcatcher for Sober Vibes podcast, and go support Courtney, give her a 5-star review, and share with someone that you think that might need some help getting sober. You did share one success story with a gentleman that needed to get sober when you went on vacation. Do you have another one you could share with us before we start saying goodbye?
Yes. So, I mean, even to another one of a woman that I helped, I have many, but another one, because I still talk to her to this day. She has been sober for 3 years. And she was a pandemic sober baby. Is what I like to call.
Oh, wow.
But because that was a great time for people actually to utilize that time to get sober. And I know that. And even I have a couple of them as well in my Facebook group, where that's just free, of where people have tapped into that to utilize that for their own recovery. So there's many stories of people who I have worked with who are still sober to this day.
Well, good for her during the pandemic. I know I drank more during the pandemic. I was like, what am I going to do? I was bored. So, I tried to keep myself entertained as best as I could. And then I was so happy when it was done, because then I was back to the gym. Yes.
Right. Well, the pandemic was hard. It took a lot of people out of their structure, but definitely just for getting sober too, because it took the socialization aspect out of it. And that is such a fear of people when they get sober.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Courtney, this has been such a great, enlightening conversation. I love what you do. I think it's necessary, especially because alcohol is such an accepted substance. Like, you watch TV and it's just like, you think that everything you do, it has to be around drinking. You know what I mean? Like Housewives, your TV shows, it's like everything is like, it involves alcohol. So I think it's very hard for people to know where to draw the line when it comes to partaking in that substance, because it can get a little bit out of control.
Oh yeah. Alcohol is the only drug that we have to explain not using.
Interesting.
It's so embedded and ingrained in our society. It's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's the only drug where if somebody is like, you want to drink, and you say no, then you are followed up with why, what's wrong with you? Are you pregnant? And it's ridiculous. So that's why we have to change the conversation around it. And if a person says, no, thank you, cool. What else can I get you?
Yeah. I agree. This made me think of something. What are your thoughts on, everybody's starting to, weed is everywhere now. Like, you can get it at the drop of a hat. So what are your thoughts on that with becoming sober?
Everybody's, what people choose to do or use or whatnot. I mean, that I can't, that's their side of the street. I can't,
No, I know. I'm just saying
Right.
it's becoming more acceptable like alcohol. It's like if you're not smoking pot, then what's wrong with you? Like I had my days smoking pot. I have zero interest in doing it ever again. None of the
Yeah.
gummies, nothing. I have zero interest. So like, but everywhere I go, I smell it everywhere. Everybody is smoking pot. It's like it's becoming as accepted as alcohol. That's what I feel.
Yeah. I mean, I with that, because I feel like with that, as anything, if it's impacting your life in a negative way,
Yeah.
then that's where you need to really be aware to that, right? Because this is the thing. These are the most addictive things besides sugar. And is the cell phone. Like people are addicted to
Yeah.
cell phones. And that has to be a mindfulness, right? Like it becomes a mindfulness. But yeah, I mean, with the weed, this is how I feel about the weed though. I don't smoke. I use CBD. I don't smoke because I will have to splash water on my face. But marijuana, I have to say, it's like I have a girlfriend who has seizures and she uses it for her seizures. I mean,
Sure.
it's just that to me has more of an impact medical wise
Yeah.
than alcohol. It's straight poison you're putting into your body.
Yeah.
Straight poison.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. I just wanted to ask you that really
Mhm,
quick.
mhm.
No, there are a lot of medical benefits to marijuana and THC. So I agree with that. But a lot of, when you go out, you smell it everywhere. It's like they're not using it for medical reasons.
No, but that's the same thing. And I have to say, for a long time, I was a sober bartender.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so like I can compartmentalize things, like, and that's where I'm saying, with if marijuana is negative for you, great. Same thing with alcohol. If alcohol isn't affecting you in a negative way, there's help out there besides just what we had offered for so many years.
Yeah, I love it. Courtney, this is the part of the show where I like to ask for last words of wisdom or advice. What would you like to leave with us today?
Just that if anybody is struggling as they're listening to this podcast, to never give up on themselves, and to, if you've had a little bit of a relapse, a bump in the road, don't let it take you down. Learn from it and move forward, but don't ever, ever, ever give up on yourself, because you and your life is worth it.
Yes. Amen to that. Courtney, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and the importance of becoming sober. I'm sure that you're going to impact many lives out there, especially listening to this. And I just think it's great to have those conversations at least, because
Mhm.
I know plenty of people that overserve. I used to overserve myself, and now I'm just like, I don't want to do that. First of all, I'm getting too old to do that. I don't want to do that anymore. So I think it's great. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate, review, comment, share, all those good things. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.